Welcome the anointed ones. Say one honest sentence in the wrong room, and you'll watch people panic like you just activated a bomb. That's exactly what happened when you said something casually, jokingly, without any intention behind it. Yet somehow your words aged like prophecy. And nothing unsettles people more than realizing the thing they laughed at is the very thing they're now living in. That's when the energy in the room shifts. Their faces tighten, their voices drop. Suddenly, everyone is doing emotional gymnastics trying to explain how you, the person they underestimated, ended up being right. Here's the wild part. According to behavioral studies, people don't fear unpredictable events the most. They fear unpredictable people. They can handle chaos, but they cannot handle someone who sees around corners without effort. And that's exactly what your joke exposed. Your ability to speak truth without dressing it up, without preparing a speech, without making a whole production out of it. You just threw one playful comment into the air, and it landed like a truth grenade. The funniest part? You weren't even trying to be deep. You weren't meditating under a waterfall, channeling ancient wisdom, or decoding the universe like some mystical detective. You were literally just talking. Meanwhile, they're spiraling because your casual words came true with uncomfortable accuracy. If there was a scoreboard for life, they'd swear you were cheating. And this is where the story gets interesting. The moment your joke became reality, it forced them to face something they've been avoiding. Your insight isn't random, and your intuition isn't accidental. That single sentence revealed more about you than hours of explaining ever could. It showed them you notice things they miss, you sense things they deny, and you speak from a depth they didn't even know you had access to. Now they're scrambling, replaying the moment, analyzing your tone, trying to figure out if you somehow knew all along. But deep down, they don't want that answer, because it would mean their entire perception of you was wrong. And nothing shakes a person harder than discovering that the one they dismissed is the one who's been quietly right the whole time. Welcome to the moment where your joke wasn't just a joke. It was the truth knocking politely on their sanity. Let's talk about why they're losing their minds now. Number one, they laughed because they assumed you were incapable, not because your idea was funny. When people laugh at you, it's rarely about humor. Most of the time, it's their way of protecting themselves from the discomfort of realizing someone they underestimated might actually be capable. They laughed at you because they assumed you didn't have the capacity to pull anything off. They thought your words were lightweight, meaningless, or simply part of a joke. And in that assumption, they were already placing you beneath them, creating a mental box labeled not serious, not threatening, easy to dismiss. But here's the brutal truth. Their laughter wasn't innocent. It was a mask for the unease that bubbles under the surface whenever someone dares to step outside the expectations others have forced onto them. They were unconsciously testing the limits of what you could do, not just hearing what you said. And when it turned out that your words weren't just idle chatter, the entire foundation of their assumptions began to shake. That laughter turned into panic because they realized the person they dismissed as incapable just shattered the narrative they had built around you. They didn't see it coming because they never prepared for you to actually succeed where they thought you couldn't. They were counting on your failure to validate their perception of control, to reassure themselves that their judgment was accurate. That's the real reason they lost it when your joke became real. It's never just about the action, it's about the mental hierarchy they believed was fixed. Your ability to pull it off proved that they had been wrong all along, and being wrong in front of someone you underestimated is a trigger for chaos in their minds. What makes this even more intense is the subtlety of your approach. You weren't loud, you weren't overconfident, and you didn't scream your intentions. You simply made a remark, lightly tossed into the world, that ended up hitting with the precision of a revelation. Their laughter was a shield, and now that shield is shattered. They are forced to face that they misjudged you, that their assumptions were weak, and that their dismissal was premature. Your capability was always there, but the moment it became undeniable, it created a kind of cognitive dissonance that leaves them scrambling, confused, and unsettled. In the end, their reaction is proof of your power. You didn't need to prove anything intentionally. The fact that your casual words disrupted their entire mental map says more about your presence and ability than any argument ever could. Number 2. Your offhand comment exposed the fact that you observe more than you speak. The truth is, most people never notice how much you're actually taking in. They assume that if you're quiet, if you don't constantly comment, it means you're unaware or disengaged. That's their mistake. Your silence isn't emptiness. It's a strategy, a sign that you're watching, cataloging, and understanding more than anyone realizes. When you make an offhand comment, they don't just hear words. They hear the weight of all the unseen observations behind them. That's why it hits differently. Your words catch them off guard because they underestimate the depth of your awareness. People rarely consider that someone who seems light or carefree might actually be absorbing every nuance, every subtle action, every inconsistency around them. Your joke was a delivery system, but the message underneath was far stronger. You notice things that nobody else does. And now that what you casually said turned out to be real, they're scrambling to reconcile the version of you they thought they knew with the reality of your perception. It's not just about noticing things, it's about context. You can observe without judgment, without needing approval, without overcomplicating what you see. That makes your insights precise and striking when you finally choose to speak. And the fact that it came out lightly makes it even more disarming. They didn't see it coming because they assumed the quiet ones aren't tracking the details that matter. But you were tracking, you were processing, and you were ready to let your words carry the weight of all that unseen attention without even trying. This is why your offhand comment shakes them. It's not just that it came true, it's that it revealed something fundamental about you. They assumed you were passive, easy to dismiss, or incapable of noticing the layers beneath the surface. You proved that you are neither. You speak when the moment demands it, but your awareness is constant. Your silence is not a weakness. It's your advantage. And when you choose to reveal it, even in jest, it becomes a mirror showing them exactly how wrong they were about you. They're not upset about the joke itself. They're unsettled because it revealed the quiet storm of perception and understanding they never expected from you. That's why your offhand comment doesn't just land, it detonates. Number 3, they're losing their minds because your intuition outperformed their logic. People are comfortable with logic because it feels controlled. They like to analyze, plan, and predict, believing that reason is the ultimate guide. But when someone operates from intuition, all their neat calculations can collapse in an instant. That's exactly what happened when your joke turned out to be real. It wasn't because you overthought it or plotted every angle. It was because you sensed it, felt it, and spoke it without needing proof. Your intuition was sharper than their hours of reasoning, and that's a shock most people aren't prepared for. The unsettling part for them isn't just that you were right. It's that you were right, effortlessly. They spent mental energy strategizing, questioning, and doubting, while you simply acknowledged a truth they couldn't see, and it manifested. Your joke was a casual declaration, but it carried the weight of instinct, of an internal compass that doesn't need validation. Now they're struggling to reconcile their belief in control with the reality that your inner guidance was operating at a level they can't comprehend. This is why they panic. Logic gives people confidence because it creates a structure they think they can manipulate. Intuition, on the other hand, feels unpredictable and threatening, especially when it outperforms their calculations. Your ability to sense the situation, read the subtle cues, and act on what others couldn't even consider makes your words land with shocking accuracy. They realize too late that you were operating from a deeper, quieter intelligence, one that doesn't shout but still lands every mark. They can't attack it, argue it, or disprove it. They can only watch in disbelief as your joke turns out to be truth. It's terrifying because it proves that their reliance on logic alone is limited, and your intuition is more powerful than their structured thinking. Your words weren't just correct. They were a revelation of a capacity they didn't expect to exist in someone they underestimated. Now, every glance, every decision, every casual word you say holds weight. They're scrambling to understand how you did it, but the truth is simple. You didn't need to do anything. You just listened to your inner knowing, and it outperformed their entire mental arsenal. That is the moment they realize they are outmatched, not by skill, but by instinct. Number 4. Your joke revealed that you could see through their hidden intentions. The power of observation is not just in noticing what's obvious, it's in detecting the hidden currents beneath the surface. That's what made your joke so devastatingly effective. People laughed because they thought it was harmless, light-hearted, maybe even silly. What they didn't realize is that, in that single remark, you exposed their own carefully concealed intentions. Every subtle move, every masked motive, every private thought they assumed was invisible was suddenly reflected back at them, and it sent them into a spiral. They're losing their minds because the joke was never really a joke. It was a mirror. It revealed the parts of themselves they thought nobody could see, the strategies they were quietly implementing, and the energy they were trying to manipulate without detection. You didn't have to accuse, confront, or debate. You simply spoke, lightly, and in doing so, you stripped their secrecy down to its core. The shock isn't that you were right. It's that they didn't even know you were paying attention closely enough to catch it. Your ability to read between the lines is what unsettles them most. Most people operate assuming the world is superficial, that what you say is all you are, and that hidden agendas remain buried. But you demonstrated without effort that you are attuned to layers that most people ignore. You understood context, motive, and timing so perfectly that your offhand comment aligned with realities they desperately tried to hide. That alignment is disarming. It's not just confirmation of your insight, it's proof that they are predictable to someone who isn't distracted by appearances or noise. Now, every action they take is under scrutiny, because they know you see the undercurrents they've been relying on to maneuver. That fear of exposure is paralyzing. They realize their manipulation, their schemes, and even their own self-protection are transparent to you. They can't retract the truth once it's been spoken casually, and their disbelief turns to panic. What they laughed off as a joke has become undeniable evidence that you see far more than anyone ever assumed, and that revelation shakes them because it proves, quietly and relentlessly, that they are no longer in control. Number 5, the truth is they were threatened because your accuracy wasn't rehearsed. What terrifies people more than skill is effortless skill. They can tolerate someone who plans, overthinks, and rehearses every word or action because it feels controlled, predictable, and ultimately explainable. But when your words hit with precision, without any preparation, without any calculated effort, it shatters their sense of security. They were laughing at what they assumed was a casual, offhand joke, but when it turned out to be true, their panic wasn't about the event itself. It was about the source, you. And that's when it gets dangerous for them psychologically. Your accuracy wasn't manufactured. You didn't need to double-check, rehearse, or script anything. That kind of spontaneity is a power people struggle to confront because it implies an understanding and awareness they cannot manipulate or predict. They were hoping to label your statement as a fluke, a lucky guess, or a joke that accidentally landed. But when it came true, it exposed the uncomfortable reality that your insight isn't dependent on performance. It's natural. You didn't need to try, and that's exactly what made it threatening. They can handle someone who tries hard and gets lucky, but they cannot handle someone who succeeds without effort. It's a form of clarity they cannot dissect. The unplanned accuracy of your words forced them to face the truth that you are consistently operating on a level beyond their expectations. They're unsettled because their assumptions about effort, control, and preparation have been completely invalidated. Your joke wasn't just right. It was proof of a quiet, disciplined perception they never acknowledged. What amplifies their panic even more is the contrast between their struggle and your ease. They might have spent hours analyzing, planning, and stressing over situations while you simply made a remark in passing, and it landed like a revelation. They can't undo that moment. They can't erase it or explain it away. That effortless precision shows them that your power isn't performative, it's inherent, intuitive, and unstoppable. That's why their laughter has now turned into disbelief, and their minds are unraveling under the weight of a truth they didn't expect to confront. Number 6. Your joke confirmed what their conscience had been trying to ignore. People often live in a delicate balance between denial and awareness. They make choices, take actions, and nurture thoughts that they don't want anyone to notice, even themselves. Deep down, their conscience whispers truths they'd rather ignore, but they push them aside, hoping the world won't see, and sometimes even convincing themselves that it doesn't matter. When you made your joke, you didn't realize it at the time, but you tapped into that very tension. Your casual words suddenly confirmed what they were trying to bury, the inconvenient truth about their actions, motives, or fears. That's why they're losing their minds. The joke itself isn't the problem. It's the exposure it brings. It's the sudden, undeniable reflection of something they hoped would stay hidden. For someone who has spent mental energy constructing a version of reality where their conscience is silenced, your words act like a crack in that illusion. They laugh at first, partly to shield themselves, partly to convince others that it's nothing serious. But when it unfolds exactly as you said, that laugh dies quickly, replaced by the panic of recognition. You've proven, without accusing or confronting, that you saw what they thought was invisible. What makes this even more unsettling is that it wasn't planned. You didn't sit down and think, I'm going to expose them. Your joke was light, offhand, effortless, but that's precisely why it's so powerful. It reveals truths they hadn't admitted, even to themselves. It forces them to confront the shadow they've been carrying and the uncomfortable reality that someone else has not only noticed it, but voiced it casually, with perfect timing. Your words didn't just land, they resonated. They hit the part of their psyche that knows they've been dishonest or manipulative or hiding something, and that part has no defense. It's immediate, undeniable, and humiliating in a way that logic, reasoning, or denial can no longer fix. The joke confirms the truth their conscience has been whispering all along, and that confirmation is unbearable. That's why they are scrambling, unsettled, and frankly terrified of what else you might casually reveal next. Number 7. They realized you weren't joking, you were unlocking something. The unsettling truth for them is that your words weren't just casual or humorous. They were a trigger, a key that unlocked hidden realities they weren't prepared to face. People assume a joke is harmless, something that floats through the air without consequence. But when your words align with the truth they've been avoiding, when they reveal patterns or outcomes they never expected to be seen, The joke stops being a joke and becomes a revelation. That's when the panic sets in. That's when they realize you're not playing around. You're operating on a level they didn't know existed. They're losing their minds because your offhand remark exposed more than just a momentary truth. It revealed awareness, insight, and understanding that they never anticipated from someone they dismissed. You didn't need to lecture, argue, or prove yourself. A single, seemingly light comment carried the weight of perception and clarity they had ignored. Their laughter turns into discomfort because deep down they sense that your words have opened a door to things they'd rather keep closed, things that challenge their assumptions, their control, and their sense of superiority. What makes it even more unnerving is how effortless it was. They're scrambling to find the method behind it, to rationalize it, to reduce it to coincidence. But the more they try, the more they realize they can't. You weren't joking. You were observing, sensing, and articulating a truth that had been invisible to them until that moment. That realization is destabilizing. The power of that moment isn't just in the accuracy of your words. It's in the awakening they trigger. You unlocked a layer of understanding they hadn't considered, forcing them to face a reality where your perception is sharp, your intuition is reliable, and your awareness is constant. They weren't prepared for it because they assumed a casual comment could never carry that kind of weight. Now, the impact lingers, and they are left grappling with the fact that you have the ability to expose truth effortlessly, and that every future word from you carries the potential to unlock even more hidden realities they didn't know you could see. Number 8. They can't process how someone they underestimated predicted something they couldn't. Underestimation is a dangerous mistake, and people make it all the time. They see you, they size you up, and they decide they know exactly what you're capable of, usually less than you actually are. That's why your joke hit so hard. They assumed it was harmless, a silly remark from someone they'd quietly dismissed. They didn't prepare for it to be accurate, and when it turned out to be true, the shock wasn't just about the outcome. It was about their failure to anticipate it. They had been operating under a false sense of control, and you shattered it effortlessly. The panic comes from cognitive dissonance. They believed in their assessment of you, and that belief dictated how they treated you, how they ignored or belittled your input, and how confident they felt in their own position. Your prediction, your joke, exposed the flaw in their judgment. It revealed that their perception of reality was incomplete, and that they had miscalculated someone they thought they understood. Now they're forced to confront the fact that you are far more capable, insightful, and aware than they ever allowed themselves to consider. What makes this even more destabilizing for them is the simplicity of how it happened. There was no grand plan, no rehearsed strategy, no elaborate manipulation. You said what you felt, what you observed, what your mind naturally aligned with, and it manifested with undeniable accuracy. The effortless nature of your insight amplifies the impact. They can't reduce it to luck or coincidence, and that's terrifying. Every underestimated person has a breaking point when confronted with truth they didn't expect. In this case, your casual remark forced them to acknowledge that their assumptions were flawed and that their confidence in predicting or controlling outcomes was misplaced. They are scrambling, confused, and unsettled because they realized too late that you were operating on a level they never saw coming. That's the moment the joke stops being funny and becomes proof of your depth, awareness, and the very thing they feared acknowledging about you, that you are always a step ahead, even when they refuse to notice. Number 9, your comment turned real because you speak from a place they can't reach. There's a level of awareness most people can't touch, a quiet depth that isn't visible or measurable, but it's there, guiding your perception and your words. That's why your offhand comment landed with such precision. It came from a place they can't access. They operate on surface-level thinking, assumptions, and logic that feels safe because it's predictable. You, on the other hand, speak from intuition, insight, and an inner alignment that doesn't rely on validation or rehearsal. That's why what you said as a joke became undeniable reality. They weren't equipped to understand where it came from, and that unsettled them completely. The shock they feel isn't about the statement itself, it's about the origin of your words. They can't trace it, control it, or counter it because you aren't working from their level of thinking. You weren't trying to manipulate outcomes or prove a point. You weren't performing. You simply allowed your perception to speak naturally, and the truth carried it effortlessly. That kind of clarity, that kind of alignment, is disorienting to people who operate from expectation and assumption. Your casual remark isn't casual to those who know how to read the energy. It's a display of awareness, understanding, and insight that exposes their limitations in comparison. They're panicking because your words highlight a gap they can't bridge. They can't argue it because it isn't based on reasoning they can dissect. They can't dismiss it because it manifested exactly as you said. And worst of all for them, it shows that you are operating on a level they can't even imagine. That's why your joke feels so threatening. It's not just that it was right. It's that it came from a part of you they can't reach, can't influence, and can't predict. Every move you make, every statement you casually drop, now carries weight in their minds, because they've realized they're observing someone whose mind functions beyond their scope. They're scrambling to make sense of it, but the truth is simple. You speak from a place of depth, alignment, and instinct, and that makes your words unstoppable, undeniable, and impossible for them to control. Number 10. They were hoping your joke would stay a fantasy because its truth exposes their insecurities. People often laugh at things not because they're funny, but because it's safer to mask fear with amusement. That's exactly what happened when you made your comment. They dismissed it as a joke, a harmless thought tossed into the air, something that wouldn't actually affect reality. Deep down, though, they were hoping that it would remain just that, a fantasy, an idea that would float away without consequences. What they didn't count on was the truth of your words landing so perfectly that it shattered their carefully constructed mental comfort zones. The reason they panic is because your joke didn't just predict an outcome, it reflected back their own insecurities. Every word you casually spoke highlighted aspects of the situation they were avoiding, flaws in their control, and weaknesses in their perception. It forced them to confront the things they had tried to ignore, deny, or manipulate, and that confrontation is uncomfortable in the extreme. Your words didn't attack them directly, but they hit the exact spots they were secretly afraid would be exposed. That's why their laughter dissolved into disbelief, confusion, and a sense of being outmaneuvered. What makes this even more destabilizing is that your remark wasn't rehearsed or calculated. It wasn't designed to reveal anything. It was an unfiltered observation, a thought you spoke without intention, yet it landed like a mirror held up to their insecurities. They are scrambling because they realize your awareness operates on a level that doesn't need proof or planning. It just is. They can't argue against it, can't rationalize it, and can't dismiss it. Now every time they look back at that moment, they feel the weight of it. They realize that the person they laughed at casually holds insight they never expected, and that insight exposes the truth they hoped would stay hidden. Your words, unplanned and effortless, revealed their insecurities with surgical precision. That's why they're losing their minds. The fantasy they wanted to laugh off has become undeniable reality, and it shows them a truth about themselves they weren't ready to face. Number 11. Your joke was actually a boundary test they failed without realizing. What people fail to realize is that sometimes a single casual remark can reveal far more about others than hours of observation. That's exactly what happened with your offhand comment. While it sounded like a joke, it was actually a test, a quiet measure of their awareness, their respect, and their boundaries. They didn't realize it at the time, but their reaction told you everything you needed to know about their intentions, their control, and how far they were willing to push before showing their true colors. They laughed because they thought it was harmless, thinking the moment was too light to reveal anything serious. That's where they made the mistake. Your words weren't random. They were a subtle probe, and by reacting the way they did, they exposed the limits of their understanding. They failed to recognize that the joke wasn't just a joke. It was a gauge, and their misstep put them on display. That's why the eventual realization hit them so hard. They thought they were safe, they thought they were in control, and they didn't see that they had already crossed a line they didn't even know existed. Your ability to test boundaries so casually, without aggression or confrontation, is what makes this so powerful. You don't need to announce it or dramatize it. You simply speak, observe, and absorb, and the responses you get reveal far more than any direct question or accusation ever could. Their failure isn't just embarrassing, it's frightening to them because it exposes their assumptions, their limitations, and the fact that you are quietly assessing them in ways they can't control. When the joke turned real, the panic came not from the truth of the situation itself, but from the fact that you had already gauged their reactions, anticipated their weaknesses, and silently marked the boundary they failed to respect. Your casual words became a reflection of their misjudgment, showing them they had underestimated both your awareness and your ability to hold them accountable without even trying. That's why your simple joke left them scrambling, unsettled, and fully aware that they had been caught in a test they didn't even realize existed. Number 12. They're losing their minds because your accuracy means they can't manipulate you. Manipulation thrives on the unseen, the unspoken, and the underestimated. People assume they can influence others who aren't paying attention, who don't notice patterns, or who can be misled by appearances. That's why your joke hit them so hard. It wasn't just correct. It was a signal that they cannot control or manipulate you. They thought your words were light, inconsequential, and easy to ignore. When those words turned out to be real, it forced them to confront the fact that their influence over you is limited, and that realization shakes them to their core. The panic they feel comes from the loss of control. They are used to people following scripts, being swayed by subtle pressure, or misreading intentions. But your accuracy proves you are operating on a level that cannot be influenced by fear, assumptions, or manipulation. Your joke revealed that you see more, understand more, and process reality in ways they cannot touch. Suddenly, every move they make is under scrutiny, because they know you are not only aware of their intentions, but also immune to them. What makes this even more destabilizing is how effortless it appears. You didn't announce that you were aware or make a show of your insight. You simply spoke casually, and your words carried the weight of perception, timing, and understanding that leaves no room for deceit. They scramble because they realize that their tactics, subtle lies, misleading behavior, or calculated influence have no effect. You are a presence that cannot be bent to their design, and that is terrifying for anyone who relies on control to maintain comfort. The truth is, their unease isn't about the joke itself, it's about what it represents. It confirms that you operate on a level of awareness they can't breach, that your actions aren't dictated by their manipulations, and that their efforts to sway or deceive you are futile. That realization is uncomfortable, humbling, and disorienting. Your joke was the trigger, but the message it delivered is far deeper. You are untouchable to their schemes, and that is why they are losing their minds. Number 13. Your casual words revealed the spiritual receipts they thought were invisible. People often operate under the comforting illusion that their actions, intentions, and choices can remain hidden. They believe that no one sees the full picture, that their motives, manipulations, or secrets are buried beneath layers of carefully constructed facades. That's why your casual joke shook them so deeply. It wasn't the words themselves, it was the truth they carried. Your comment acted like a spotlight, exposing the unseen, the unacknowledged, and the spiritual receipts they thought were invisible. Suddenly, everything they assumed was private, everything they believed they controlled, was laid bare in a way they couldn't argue against. The panic that follows comes from recognition. They realize that you not only noticed what was happening, but you also understood it in a way that transcends the superficial. Your joke wasn't a performance, it was a reflection of awareness and alignment. The truth behind it carries weight because it resonates beyond logic, beyond reasoning, and touches a part of reality they have been hoping to hide. Their discomfort isn't about being caught in a lie. It's about the realization that someone sees the truth they thought was invisible, and they cannot hide it from you. What makes this even more destabilizing is your effortless delivery. You didn't have to confront, accuse, or explain. You didn't need to produce evidence or prove yourself. You simply spoke, casually, and the weight of all their hidden intentions and truths revealed itself naturally. That revelation leaves them scrambling, desperate to find a way to regain control. But there isn't one. Your awareness exists in a space they can't access, a level of perception that exposes what they have long ignored or tried to conceal. In the end, it's not the joke itself that terrifies them. It's the proof that their hidden actions, their subtle games, and their secret moves are no longer safe from observation. You became the witness they never expected, the mirror they cannot avoid, and the presence that reveals all without even trying. That is why your words, casual as they were, became undeniable evidence of a truth they thought they could hide forever. Number 14. Your joke exposed that they were betting on your confusion, not your clarity. Some people stay comfortable because they assume you're lost. They assume you don't see the dynamics, the shade, the intentions, or the subtle ways they tried to play you. They thrive on the idea that you're unsure, that you're second-guessing yourself, that you're fumbling through life while they stay one step ahead. So when you made that joke, light, casual, playful, they laughed at first. In their minds, you were still in the dark. You were still the one trying to figure things out. You were still the person they could mislead, distract, or outsmart. But the moment your joke turned out to be real, everything flipped on its head. When the truth came out, they didn't just panic, they shattered internally. Because they finally realized you weren't confused at all. You were aware, fully aware. You saw what they were trying to hide. You understood more than you ever let on. And what hit them hardest wasn't the truth itself. It was the realization that you had clarity the entire time. They weren't dealing with someone naive, or someone guessing, or someone stumbling through life. They were dealing with someone who had already connected the dots, someone who noticed what they ignored, and someone who carried more insight than they ever gave you credit for. Your joke became the moment they realized their little strategies were useless against someone who wasn't confused in the first place. It exposed their entire mindset. It showed that they had been underestimating you, counting on you being slow to catch on, counting on you being too trusting, counting on you being too gentle to confront what was going on. What caught them off guard was the accuracy behind your words, the precision, the timing, the ease with which you said something they never thought you could know. You didn't have to prove anything. You didn't have to argue, expose, confront, or defend. Your clarity surfaced naturally, and it shook them because it contradicted the image they created of you. They were betting on your confusion, but what they got was your clarity, and that clarity stripped their confidence, exposed their assumptions, and showed them they misread the wrong person. The truth is, what started as a casual remark or an offhand joke wasn't just a passing comment. It was a reflection of your awareness, your intuition, and your ability to operate on a level most people can't even fathom. Every word you spoke carried weight, whether they realized it or not, because it came from a place of clarity, observation, and understanding that doesn't need rehearsal or validation. You exposed hidden truths, revealed intentions they tried to mask, and demonstrated a depth of perception that left them scrambling to make sense of it all. The shock they feel isn't about the events themselves. It's about the undeniable proof that you are fully present, fully aware, and operating with a level of insight they could never manipulate or predict. Each point we explored shows a different angle of this undeniable reality. From their laughter born of underestimation to the panic caused by your effortless accuracy, from the exposure of hidden intentions to the revelation of truths they had been ignoring, everything points to one undeniable fact. You are operating from a depth, a clarity, and an instinct that others cannot touch. Your words, even when casual, become instruments of truth that unmask pretense, highlight oversight, and reveal the hidden layers of human behavior. They weren't prepared for it, and that's why they are losing their minds. It's not just a moment of surprise, it's the long overdue recognition of someone who sees clearly, thinks deeply, and speaks with a precision that leaves no room for illusion. This is more than just a story about a joke or a prediction coming true. It's a demonstration of what happens when someone refuses to be underestimated, when someone's perception refuses to be manipulated, and when someone's intuition aligns perfectly with reality. It's a reminder that true insight doesn't need to scream, it doesn't need fanfare, and it doesn't need permission to be recognized. Your presence alone is a statement, and your words, even casual, are proof that you are always several steps ahead of anyone trying to catch up. If this message resonated with you, make sure to subscribe to the channel so you never miss content like this. Hit the like button to show support, drop a comment sharing your thoughts and experiences, and share this video with someone who needs to hear the truth. Every click, every comment, every share helps spread this awareness and reminds others that perception, clarity, and insight are forces no one can ignore. God bless you.